Hello again. I'm Wally Wood, welcoming you to another edition of the Revelation File. We have another report for you today, so we will begin with our disclaimer report because we do have some video in this particular report today. In our media presentations, such as this one in today's program, we use slides, videos, photos, and other creative art produced from outside sources whose works are displayed over the public internet or in public libraries or in our own personal collection of research material. The intent and purposes for the use of this material in this kind of forum is exclusively for education and transformative instruction and teaching. We do not make these presentations available for financial profit. And we place this here for our critics at YouTube and Facebook and other sources. In today's presentation, we're going to cover the first of two that we've already set up for you that will cover the end of this month, September, and into the next month. Our first report today is Earth in Travail. And we're going to review the fact that it has already been declared that the earth is on fire. And our follow-up report in our next program will be having to do with Israel prepares for its new era with the building of the third temple and the resumption of daily sacrifice. So you'll want to see that report as well. Earth in Travail. Romans 8:22 says, "For we know that the whole creation groans together and travails in pain together until now." And we have extreme weather conditions that have hit the world on every continent. You've got supercell storms, raging wildfires throughout the West Coast, fire on the water, fire on the oceans, supreme drought and extreme weather as far as winter storms are concerned, and super dust storms that have never been seen before that tower as high as mountains in some countries. So these are things that the extremes that the earth is experiencing right now, and Jesus said that they would occur immediately preceding his return. So it's something that we as the body of Christ need to pay attention to and be in prayer about, because these things are only going to get worse, Jesus said, before he comes back. So turning our attention to a world on fire, NASA has released photos from space showing where the fires are. The world is on fire, NASA says, or so it appears in this image from NASA's World View. The red points overlaid on the image designate those areas that are by using thermal bands to detect actively burning fires. And I've provided for you here the web address that you can go to. So as you view this presentation, you can copy that address and go and see these results yourself. Climate and fire scientists are at a loss for words in describing the scope and intensity of the fires burning in West Coast states in September 2020. Record-breaking air temperatures, periods of unusually dry air, and blasts of fierce winds, on top of serious drought in some areas, led fires to ravage forests and loft vast plumes of smoke to rarely ever seen sights. The view of the fires from space has been unusual and grim. If you're looking at the upper left photo, please notice the note fire retardant. Now, what you see from space there is the residue of the fire retardant that's been dropped on all these areas from airplanes and helicopters throughout the area. That's pretty remarkable in itself. And here we have a video from dwnews.com having to do with the unprecedented wildfires that have forced 500,000 people to flee their homes in Oregon.
As if 2020 wasn't strange enough already, this was the morning commute over San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge this week. Smoke and ash from wildfires mixed with the cool Pacific Ocean air to produce an otherworldly effect.
11:15. Crazy. 11:15 in the morning, and it's like the middle of the night almost.
And it looks like the apocalypse right now. It's like nighttime in the daytime.
We were just like, this is the weirdest day we've ever seen, so we might as well, you know, come out and experience it together, take a break from work and come outside.
Historic fires are ripping through 3 western states. In California, almost 5,000 square kilometres have burned. Firefighters don't expect to bring the blazes under control until the middle of October. Some villages have already been lost. Survivors describe how the flames advanced.
The wind was blowing so hard, it still should have been daylight, but it was dark. And the ashes were everywhere, and the wind was blowing outrageously bad. I mean, it was bad.
A driver in Oregon filmed the dramatic scenes as an inferno engulfed the forests. While a bird's eye view reveals the total obliteration the fires left in their wake. The governor told residents to brace for a huge loss of life and property and said this would not be a one-off event.
We are feeling the acute impacts of climate change. We are seeing its devastating impacts in Oregon, on the West Coast, and frankly, throughout the entire world.
In Washington state too, fires have wreaked havoc and heartbreak.
Everything gone, clothes, beds, everything.
As firefighters continue their battle across the West Coast, meteorologists are warning that it is not yet even peak wildfire season.
A part of the world that usually epitomizes cold is now unseasonably very, very hot. Regions of northern Siberia are routinely 10 degrees higher than usual, often cracking 30 degrees. Yakutia is a cold, wintry place, she says. I didn't think it would ever get so hot here. The implications of the heat wave for Russia's landscape are already severe. 1.7 million hectares of forest and tundra are now on fire, including some areas that are less than 15 kilometers from the Arctic Ocean.
This fire season seems to be quite extreme.
Anton Benislavsky is Greenpeace Russia's wildfire coordinator.
So a lot of forests would be heavily damaged and destroyed.
Canada's Arctic is of course heating up too as climate change alters the Gulf Stream current, propelling warmer air north.
It's remarkable, scary.
Tundra ecologist Greg Henry is usually up on Ellesmere Island about now, monitoring climate change. But the pandemic has kept him back at UBC in Vancouver this season.
The Arctic has accumulated an awful lot of carbon. In fact, the sort of best estimates we have now is about twice as much carbon in the soils of the Arctic than is in the atmosphere right now. We'd be speeding it up if the fires got in there and started burning that carbon that's been locked away for thousands of years.
It's not just Russia's forests and air quality that suffered. This river turned crimson last month after 20,000 tons of diesel fuel leaked from a mining company reservoir. It appears thawing permafrost that held the containment area together melted. Greenpeace says government oversight is badly lacking, as are measures to mitigate climate change.
With a total lack of will to solve the problem, brings us to the fire catastrophe every year.
Though there was cooler weather this week, forecast models show fires continuing to spread, and this week's blip doesn't alter the projection for more extreme Arctic weather events as the region heats up twice as fast as the rest of the world. Chris Brown, CBC News, Vancouver.
Unprecedented conditions. California right now is really the primary focus in the country, literally, for fire activity.
There's a battle happening in California, and it's being fought in the sky and on the ground. In recent days, there have been 12 fires burning throughout the state, and at least 6,000 firefighters are trying to get them contained. This wildfire is called the King Fire, burning about 50 miles east of Sacramento. As you can see, there's just so much smoke, and it's really tough on your eyes being out here. This is the time of the year when wildfires are at their worst because the ground and the trees have been baking all summer long, and the heat And because of the drought, this could be the most destructive wildfire season on record. You can see and you can certainly feel how dry this brush is, and with this drought lasting 3 years now, there's no shortage of fuel to keep these fires burning. When the terrain is this steep, it's really critical that you get support from the air, and it's always so impressive to see those DC-10 air takers dropping 12,000 gallons of red fire retardant. Fire crews really have to evaluate their options when they send all their resources, especially when you have so many fires burning at once. The worst fire we've seen this time around has been in the town of Weed, California, that's near the Oregon border. The fire engulfed more than 100 homes and damaged nearly 100 more. It also burned the community library and destroyed 2 churches.
It's just one of those things you watch on TV all the time and you never think it's going to happen to you. Fires move a lot quicker than you think. They get started, you better get moving.
And with these bone-dry conditions, the fear is you could see a lot more devastation as firefighters race from blaze to blaze.
DWN News of Germany reported on August 20th in a 43-minute documentary saying that enormous fires are destroying forests and communities around the world. Each year, 350 million hectares, meaning 865 million acres of forest, go up in smoke, the equivalent of 6 times the size of France. In the U.S., the fire season now lasts up to 2 months longer than a generation ago, and the surface burnt annually has multiplied by 3, end of quote. CNN News, headline, Summer 2020's Arctic wildfires set new emission records. This was published in September of this year. Wildfires raging in the Arctic Circle smashed last year's records for carbon dioxide emissions, according to scientists at the Copernicus Atmosphere Monitoring Service. Scientists estimate that the CO2 emissions from fires in the Arctic Circle have increased by more than a third compared to 2019, with 244 megatons of carbon produced from January 1st to August 31st, 2020. By comparison, 181 megatons of carbon were produced the entire year of 2019. Another headline from the Associated Press, published in The Guardian of London on September 12th, record-breaking wildfires in Brazil. Record-breaking wildfires are threatening thousands of acres of one of the most biologically diverse areas on the planet, Brazil's Pantanal region, end of quote. Again, repeating Romans 8:22, for we know that the whole creation groans together and travails in pain together until now. Amos 4, verses 6 through 7. I beset all your cities with cleanness of teeth, and all your towns with lack of breath. Yet you did not return to me, declares the Lord. I also withheld the rain from you when the harvest was 3 months away. I sent rain on one city, but withheld it from another. One field received rain, another without rain withered. Deuteronomy 28, verses 15 through 68. If, however, you do not obey the Lord your God by carefully following all of his commandments and statutes that I'm giving to you today, all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. You will be cursed in the city, and you'll be cursed in the country. Verse 20. The Lord will send curses upon you, confusion and reproof in all to which you put your hand. Verse 22. The Lord will strike you with wasting disease, with fever and inflammation, with scorching heat and drought, and with blight and mildew. These will pursue you until you perish. Verse 23. The sky over your head will be bronze, and the earth beneath you iron. Verse 24. The Lord will turn the rain of your land into dust and powder. It will descend on you from the sky. Verse 46. These curses will be a sign and a wonder upon you and your descendants. Indeed, strange signs and strange times. Luke 17, verses 26 through 27, quoting out of the book of Genesis, chapter 6. It was as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be in the days of the Son of Man. They were eating, drinking, marrying, and being given in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. Then the flood came and destroyed them all. Now I'm going to pause here for a second just to give recognition to something. He says being married and giving in marriage. Why would that be considered wrong? Well, it's not wrong, but he's making a point here. His coming will be at a time when it'll be business as usual. Even in marriage, few people ever give thought to their future as far as the Lord is concerned, serving Him, obeying Him together as a couple. It's just another milestone event in their lives, and they go forward making their plans according to their own whims and wishes. It'll be a day in which every man will be a law unto himself, Genesis says. And so, in the midst of all this, as evil increases, crime increases, sin increases, these curses will also increase upon the land, just as the Lord said that they would. Returning to our slide, Genesis 6, we go back and review that. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was grieved in his heart. Verse 11, now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. Verse 12, God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. Perilous times will come, Paul told Timothy in 2 Timothy 3, verses 1 through 4. I invite you to read that passage because it details the nature of society itself, the culture in the last days. And you see headlines posted here that indicate the strenuous, perilous, dangerous times in which we're living in these days and times. Global unrest and turmoil. Ours is a world full of trauma, fear, anxiety, uncertainty, instability. The pressures of extremism are everywhere, from the oceans to the skies to the streets. What's going on and why? What does it mean? And here you see images of the stress in our world today. In the next slide, we quote Jesus in Luke 21, verses 25 through 26. There will be signs upon the earth, dismay among the nations with perplexity, men's hearts failing them for fear, in the expectation of things which are coming upon the world. For the very powers of the heavens will be shaken. Now, as I take you through these slides, pay attention and make connection with the times that we're living in, the headlines of today. Because the prophecies of yesterday are the parallel headlines and news stories of today. Jesus said in Matthew 16, verses 3 through 4, reading from the Message Bible, Jesus told them, you have a saying that goes, red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky at morning, sailors take warning. You find it easy enough to forecast the weather. Why can't you read the signs of the times? Fascinating. Coronavirus, panic buying, elderly most at risk, lockdown expanded, all sporting events canceled, financial crisis, bust, recession forecast, slump, global protests around the world. People are up in roar and trying to take down their own governments by rioting in the streets and violence. Again, I remind you, as our opening slide showed, Jesus said in Matthew 24, verse 34, the generation that sees these things shall not pass away until all these things have come to pass. Now, what's he talking about? In the lifetime of one generation, the generation that would see the splitting of the eastern sky. In that generation, everything that he prophesied in his prophetic discourse in Matthew 24 and Luke 21, Mark 11, would come to pass in the lifetime of that one generation. And that includes his coming in the sky. So we're a generation that is seeing the things that our parents never saw, even our grandparents. And they went through the Depression. They went through the rise and fall of Adolf Hitler. Those were precursors. But what we're seeing now is the full conglomeration of all these things in one short period of time. And this causes us to take note and to give pause. Our tendency, sadly to say, is to more or less kind of just brush end-time prophecy under the rug. It's gloom and doom. We don't want to hear it. Anybody who speaks on these things is labeled a prophet of gloom and doom. Well, I'm a news reporter. I'm not a prophet. And I've been reporting on these things for 30, 40 years now. And it's been fascinating to me to see the evolution of time as we've gotten deeper and deeper into the history of our days. And I'm not a bragger. I don't boast outside of what the scriptures declare in Psalm 44, that we boast on the Lord all day long. And therein lies the epicenter of my testimony and my boasting, if you will. But I remember when the Lord compelled me at a rather young age to write my first book on Cashless Society, A World Without Money. It came out in 1972. And in that book, I talked about how there would come a day in the next century when there would be a central computer system that would oversee all of our financial transactions, from the gas pump to the soda machine to the checkout stand. And that this central computer would be the final say as to whether or not we had access to our money or not. It would approve or disapprove every financial transaction that we wanted to make. Well, in 1972, the internet wasn't known. It wasn't even around. And so I simply called it CENTCOM, or Central Computer. It's amazing to me now, still working in retail, to see how we have evolved in that direction. I even talked about in the book how there would come a day when you would be able to use a device in your hand and transfer money from one account to another. And working at a cash register as I do, I see it a lot. People attempting to pay for their groceries with their credit card or their debit card, and the money's not there. So they get on their cell phone and quickly go to another account, make the digital transfer into the account they're using, and in less than 5 minutes, on average about 3 minutes, they got their groceries paid for and they're out the door. These are the dynamics of a day that was coming, and we focus in on that on this program and all the episodes that we've produced thus far. Our teaching is end-time oriented, and our reporting is end-time oriented, because this is the generation that is involved, and this is the generation that Jesus prophesied to as far back as the Gospels. He was looking into that last day. All the prophets before him did the same. They were amazed. They couldn't understand. They couldn't comprehend what the Lord was showing them by visions, dreams, and revelation. Well, we're that generation now. And if there's anything that I would compel my audience to do at this point, is to look at today's events from a different perspective, not from the earthly perspective. You get caught up with your emotions that way. Look at it from a biblical, divine perspective. Given the fact that Jesus and God through the prophets foretold this time, eons of time ago, 2,000 to 4,000 years ago. And now we're better able to understand and interpret what the prophets saw vaguely into, and they saw by images. Now we see them in reality. If you've never given serious thought to this, may I compel you to do that now? Because the end of these events, the end of the world record, is fast approaching. We're told that there was to come one final empire on earth that would involve every nation on earth and their leaders, and that they would all give their honor and their homage to a single man who would become the leader of this world empire. And I've spent my life tracking and searching for the evidences of that final empire. And that's what I bring to you in these reports of the Revelation file. That's the history of the Revelation file. It was to be an overall review of current trends and events pertinent to these end-time prophecies. Do more than go to church. Do more than pay your tithe. Do more than just be a good person. Jesus said in Luke 21 that when you see these things coming, we were to pray without ceasing so that we might be found worthy to escape those things that were coming upon the earth. That's a serious word. And it would benefit us a great deal to take those words seriously, more seriously than ever before. I think the things that we're seeing right now in the weather and the things we've just shown you in this presentation are precursors. They are warnings. Jesus said this is just the beginning of sorrows. Don't take my word for it. Watch the news. Make comparison with end-time Bible prophecy. Go to the Lord. Get deep into the Word, but go to the Lord and pray. Lord, where am I missing it? What do I need to pay more closer attention to? It's all about the Lord and us. It has nothing to do with the world affairs and the events of the world. It has everything to do with the world is being prepared and the body of Christ is being prepared to receive the second coming of Jesus Christ. Thank you for listening. We've got more to come, and we invite you to come back at our next program. I'm Wally Wood.
You have been watching the Revelation File Report with Wally Wood, a Wally Wood Ministries production from Houston, Texas. You are able to support the ministry by donating at wallywoodministries.com and by mail at Wally Wood Ministries, P.O. Box 42005, Houston, Texas 77242. Wally is available to present full 2-hour forums in your city called the Revelation File News Forum. For more details, contact Andy Valadez at 713-560-3348 or by email at andy@andyvaladez.com. The Revelation File News Report is a weekly update of global trends in the news as it aligns with end-time Bible prophecy. Tune in again next time and be sure to like and share this channel.